I'm going to walk you through all the skills for the necromancer. So let's take a look. I'm going to show you what they all do so you see them actually in game and stuff. So we start off the skill tree with the very top. We have the basic attack. We have Reap, which is going to look like this. It's your good AoE, basically. And then we have fucking God, why do I even do this? I'm going to show you all the skills the necromancer has. We're going to showcase every single one of them here. So let's take a look at all the active skills. I'm going to show them all, and then we're going to one by one go over all the passive skills. So starting off with the active skills, we have Reap as the basic attack. It's going to look like this. It's a big AoE that's really nice for recharging your essence. And then we have Decompose. So this basic attack is going to be a channel like this, and it basically just hits one target. And then we have Hemorrhage, which is a blood-based attack. Does the most damage of them and can generate an orb. It just hits a specific area like that. And more specifically, it actually just hits a target. So you're meant to actually click on a target with it. Then we have Bone Splinters. Fires 3 splinters that each deal a certain amount of damage, depending on your level and all that. And Bone Splinters is going to look like this. It's basically just a 3-prong attack. Then down in the abilities, we have Blood Lance. This is the description, how much damage it does at this level. We're going to put it on. And Blood Lance is going to look like that. And then we have Blood Surge. Draws blood from enemies. Dealing damage. Could be, all these other things we do, Nova and all this. Going to put that on. Okay. It'll just do that. It's AoE at your feet like this. Alright, so that's that one. Then we have Blight. Unleashed Blight that deals damage over time. So it's going to be like this, and it's kind of tough because it has to explode on something in order for it to actually do something. So if there's, like, you actually have to have something to hit, or else it can go really bad. Then we have Sever. Spectre of you charges 4 and attacks with the scythe, dealing damage, and then turns around and comes back again. So that's going to look like this. And I don't know, that's that. Then we have Bone Spear, which is a really good ability, honestly. So you just throw out this spear that does an obscene amount of damage compared to everything else. So that's a pretty good one. Then we have down here Blood Mist. This is your invulnerability, basically your best defensive ability if you decide to get it. So if I get this, then it will basically do this and let me be completely invulnerable for a moment and then come back to reality. It has a bunch of different perks it can get with it. And then we have Corpse Explosion, which I'll show in a second. We have Bone Prison, though. Bone Prison looks like this. So just for trapping people, basically. Probably better for PvP than PvE. And then we have, like I said, Corpse Explosion. So to show you Corpse Explosion, I just need to kill something. You'll see they drop corpses if you don't know Necromancer. And you just press this button, where you're set to, on them in order to make corpses explode. Also, by the way, while I'm here, to tell you about the skeletons. In order to summon them, by default, you have it on. You can raise skeleton on the same corpses like that. And if you take the skeletons off the bar, they'll all disappear. If you don't put them back on, go to skill assignment down here, and then you can drag it on from there in order to put it back on, and then resummon all of your skeletons. All right, so moving on to the next stuff, we have Iron Maiden. These are the 2 curse ones, Iron Maiden and Decrepify. Basically puts an AoE on the ground. This one's actually really good for getting essence back later on when you get some of the perks for it. So it just puts AoE on the ground. And then the other one is going to be Decrepify. So Decrepify is going to be similar things, different color. This one's more about making them, slowing them, and reducing their damage. And then after that, we have down here, there's Corpse Tendrils, burst out of the ground, stunning enemies. Use a corpse in order to do this. So I'd have to. Okay, good. We still have some corpses laying around. All right, so we got Corpse Tendrils. They come out like that. And then we have Bone Spirit. It consumes all of your essence to conjure a bone spirit that seeks out enemies. This one's pretty good. It does a lot of damage, so it just goes out like that. And if it hits somebody, it explodes for a ton of damage. And then we have the ultimate abilities. So we have Blood Wave. So conjure a tidal wave of blood that deals 224 damage and knocks enemies back. So I'm going to put that on, and that one looks like that. Giant AoE, but on a 48-second cooldown. Then we have the Army of the Dead. Calls forth a bunch of skeletons that emerge over the next 7 seconds and explode when they get around enemies. So that one looks like this. And you'll see them coming in from all over the place. Okay, I think they're going over here actually because they were spawning all those enemies that were out off the screen. But yeah, so that summons a bunch of skeletons on a 87-second cooldown. Then we have Bone Storm. Bone Storm makes a swirling storm of bones appear around you and your golem, dealing a ton of damage to surrounding enemies over 10 seconds. So that's going to look like this, similar to the Blizzard skill for druids. And then we have the key passives. One makes your bone skills deal 1% increased damage for each point of essence you have above 50 upon cast. So if you're at full essence when you cast, you'll do 50% additional damage. Although if you have ways to increase your essence cap, then maybe that'll do more. Another key passive, you only have one key passive, by the way, if you don't know. This one makes so after you've not taken damage in the last 3 seconds, your minions gain 15% attack speed, while you have at least 7 minions. This bonus is doubled to 30%. So if you never take damage and you just let your minions do all the fighting, that'd be good. Shadow Blight. Shadow damage infects enemies with Shadow Blight for 2 seconds. You and your minions deal 10% bonus damage to enemies with Shadow Blight. Every 10th time an enemy receives shadow damage from you or your minions while they are affected by Shadow Blight, they take a little bit of additional damage. And then we have this one, which increases your maximum life by 10% after being healthy for 15 seconds. Oh, sorry, those are different things. Increase your maximum life by 10%, and also, after being healthy for 15 seconds, your next blood skill overpowers. So, kind of a weird passive. So let's go over all the little tiny parts of all these, and really quick before we go into that, let me give you a basic build that you could run here that is really good, that I like a lot. So we have Reap. This is mainly just for AoE damage when you can't do anything else. But more importantly, you'll spawn a corpse once every 5 seconds for the first one that you hit if you get this extra one, which is totally worth it. But you just get a quick corpse so you can do corpse explosion. Then we go down here. Bone Spear just does an insane amount of damage and makes the first enemy hit vulnerable. So you just throw it out, make something vulnerable, and then try to kill it. Or at least try to get the corpse explosion going if you can, because corpse explosion is all going to revolve around. That one I go ahead and get these things just to make it do more damage. And this is how it makes it vulnerable. It's this upgrade. Then put everything into corpse explosion. Get as high rank as you possibly can. And then get it so its radius is increased. It's absolutely critical. And then increase damage to enemies who are vulnerable, which combos well with Bone Spear, especially against bosses. And then so that'll what happens, you Bone Spear, you get them to where they're dead, and then you also use this to spawn a corpse. Vulnerable with this, spawn a corpse with this, and then start popping up the explosions, and they just do an unbelievable amount of damage, and you can usually chain and just kill whole groups of enemies. And then we have the curse down here, because if you get this upgrade right here, it no longer costs essence, and instead you gain 5 essence for each enemy cursed. So you can just pop that down to help regain essence real fast whenever enemies aren't always close enough to reap, or if you don't want to get close enough to reap because it's dangerous to get close. Then we have down here, Bone Spirit. It's just for when there's no corpses and you're out of options. You can really quick just throw all your essence away to do a ton of damage with that. Hopefully kill something and then get your corpse explosions going with whatever you killed. And then for the ultimate, I think they all honestly are whatever. Bone Storm's decently good. Blood Wave's good for the burst. I honestly, this one, I didn't have much luck with Army of the Dead, but I didn't get to play around with this very much in the beta. It didn't seem that great though, but maybe at higher levels. And a lot of this is hard to know because at higher levels things will change. Okay, so that'll get you started on some basic stuff. And then I guess for key passive, I'd probably just get this one for bone skills, do more damage when the essence is higher, so I can no matter get that one tap with bone shard, get my course explosions going. Anyway, so now let's actually take a look at all the extra passives. So Reap also has instant kills targets below 5% life, but doesn't work on bosses, so kind of pointless. This one for Decompose, if an enemy dies while being decomposed, you get 10 essence. You and your minions deal 10% increased damage to enemies who are being decomposed, and or you can get Decompose, slows enemies by 30%. Then for Hemorrhage, we have this upgrade. After picking up a Blood Orb, so Hemorrhage has a 20% chance to spawn a Blood Orb, and then after picking a Blood Orb up, your next Hemorrhage also deals damage to enemies around your target and grants 2 additional essence per enemy hit. And then we have this one, which Hemorrhage grants base life as Fortify each time it hits an enemy, and has a chance per enemy hit to fortify you for 100% of your base life. Or you can gain an additional 20% attack speed while healthy and using Hemorrhage. Then we have Bone Splinters, and its bonuses are Bone Splinters has a 30% chance to fire 2 additional projectiles if cast while you have 50 or more essence. And then Bone Splinters has a 20% chance per hit to make enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. You're going to try to build into vulnerability builds. And then the other option is hitting the same enemy at least 3 times with the same cast of Bone Splinters grants an 8% critical strike chance for 4 seconds. You're trying to build crit build. That's a good one. Then we have the passives. So, Hewed Flesh. On lucky hits, you have a 4% chance to create a corpse at the target's location. Get 3 of this, so you can go 12% to create a corpse on lucky hits. And then this one, increase max energy by 3 all the way up to 9. And this one, your core skills cost 5% more essence, but deal 10% increased damage. It's going to go all the way to 15% cost and 30% damage. Then for Blood Lance, we have Enhanced Blood Lance. It pierces through enemies who are currently lanced, dealing 15% reduced damage to subsequent enemies after the first. And then after this one, your 2 choices are after casting Blood Lance 8 times, your next cast of Blood Lance is guaranteed to overpower and spawns a Blood Orb under the first enemy hit. Or while at least 2 enemies or a boss are affected by Blood Lance, you gain 15% attack speed, and Blood Lance's essence cost is reduced by 2. Then we have Blood Surge, and the upgrades are it heals you for some of your maximum life, and if 4 more enemies are drawn from, then heal for an additional amount of your max life. And then the 2 options are each time an enemy is hit, you are fortified for the amount based on your base life, and while you have fortify for over 50% of your maximum life, Blood Surge deals extra damage. And then we have the other option, which is if an enemy is damaged by Blood Surge Nova while you are healthy, you gain 1 stack of overwhelming blood. When you have 5 stacks, your next Blood Surge overpowers. Then we have Blight, and what it does is you can do so it slows enemies by 25%. And then the 2 options are you and your minions deal 15% increased damage to enemies with Blight, or Blight has a 30% chance to immobilize enemies for 1.5 seconds on impact. Then we have Sever, and their Sever damages enemies along its path for 25% of its initial damage. And then we have 2 options. Every 4th cast of Sever makes enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds, or it deals 2% increased damage for each minion you have upon cast. Alright, that's all of the core skills. Then for the Corpse and Macabre skills, there's Blood Mist, and the upgrades for it are casting a skill that overpowers, reduces the cooldown of bloods by 2 seconds. Keep in mind, it's a 19.4 second base. And then the 2 options are Blood Mist fortifies you for a percentage of your base life each time it hits an enemy, or you can get it where it leaves behind a corpse every 1 second. So you can just do that to litter a bunch of corpses and start exploding them. Then Corpse Explosion, radius increased by 15%. And then the upgrades are deals 10% increased damage to enemies that are slowed, stunned, or vulnerable, or becomes a darkness skill, and instead of exploding, releases a vile miasma, dealing 274 shadow damage over 6 seconds. Then Bone Prison, its upgrades are if an enemy is trapped by Bone Prison, gain 15 essence plus an additional 5 per enemy trap, so you can use it to recharge essence. And then Dreadful Bone Prison upgrade, fortify for 5% base life for each enemy trapped by Bone Prison, or you can make it so enemies inside of it are vulnerable. Then there are all the upgrades for these little passive upgrades. So we can gain 30 thorns up to 90. We can get Skeletal Warrior Mastery, increase the damage and life of your skeletal warriors by 15%. Then we have Grim Harvest, consuming a corpse generates 3 essence up to 9. And then Fueled by Death, you deal 4% increased damage for 4 seconds after consuming a corpse. So both those combo extremely well with Corpse Explosion. Then we have down here the curse skills. So the first skill, this one over here, Iron Maiden. Iron Maiden no longer costs essence. Instead, gain 5 essence for each enemy cursed. Does not work on enemies who are already cursed. And then when at least 3 enemies are afflicted by Iron Maiden, its damage is increased by 15%. Or heal for 5% of your maximum life when an enemy dies while afflicted with Iron Maiden. Then for the other one, Decrepify, on lucky hits, enemies hit while afflicted with Decrepify have a 10% chance to stun them for 2 seconds. And then the other option, I forget 2 options here. On lucky hits, enemies hit while afflicted with Decrepify have up to a 15% chance to reduce your active cooldowns by 1 second. Or when you or your minions hit an enemy afflicted with Decrepify below 10% life, they are killed instantly. Does not work on bosses. The passives here are Amplified Damage. You deal 3% increased damage to cursed enemies, up to 9%. Death's Embrace. Close enemies take 2% more damage from you and deal 3% less damage to you. It goes to 6 and 9. And then Death's Reach, you deal 4% increased damage to distant enemies, goes all the way to 12% with all 3 points. And Skeletal Mage Mastery increases damage and life of your skeletal mages by 15%, all the way up to 45%. Then we go over to Corpse and Macabre skills. We have Corpse Tendrils, and the upgrades are enemies who are in range of Corpse Tendrils are slowed by 50% before being pulled. Then the upgrades for it are has a 20% chance when damaging enemies to drop a Blood Orb, or enemies damaged by Corpse Tendrils are made vulnerable for 3 seconds. Then for Bone Spirit, if it critically strikes, its cooldown is reduced by 6 seconds, but that can only happen once per cast, which would reduce it all the way down to like a 6-second cast. Then the 2 upgrades are has a 10% critical strike, an additional 10% critical strike chance, or after Bone Spirit hits an enemy, you generate 30 essence over the next 4 seconds. Now for all the passives, the top ones here, while below 50% life, you receive 10% more healing from all sources. And then you can also get Blood Orbs, also heal your minions for 15% of the amount. This goes to 45. Your Blood skills deal 5% increased overpower damage as bonuses double till you're healthy, and all this can go to 15 or 30, depending on, if it's leveled up all 3 times. While healthy, your Blood skills deal 6% increased damage, all the way up to 18%. And then Drain Vitality, on lucky hits, hitting an enemy with Blood skills has up to a 25% chance to fortify you for 2% base life. Then over here, we have Reaper's Pursuit. Damaging enemies with darkness skills increases your movement speed by 5% for 3 seconds, all the way to 15%. With 3 points. Then we have Gloom. When you damage enemies with darkness skills, they take 2% increased shadow damage from you and your minions for 2 seconds, stacking up to 3 times, and that can go to 6% stacking 3 times. Darkness skills deal 3% bonus damage to enemies who are slowed, and 3% bonus damage to enemies who are stunned or immobilized. These bonuses stack and apply to shadow damage dealt by the minions. And also this one, unlucky hit, darkness skills have up to a 15% chance to stun for 1 second. Then we have over here, your bone skills have a 0.5% increased critical strike chance for each 10 essence you have upon cast. So that can go to 1.5%, so up to 15% extra critical strike chance if you want to build a crit build with bone skills. Then this one, every 100 essence you spend reduces the cooldown of your bone skills by 0.5 seconds. That could also combo well with some things. You can get that leveled up to, 1.5 seconds, and I don't know if it reduces the essence. And then this one, after critically striking 10 times with bone skills, your bone skills deal 5% increased damage for 5 seconds. And then this one, your bone skills deal 6% increased critical strike damage to vulnerable enemies, if you want to build vulnerability builds. Now, Blood Wave, its 2 upgrades are slows enemies by 50% for 4 seconds, and leaves behind 3 blood orbs as it travels. For Army of the Dead, when Army of the Dead's volatile skeletons explode, they have a 15% chance to leave a corpse behind. And then this one, Army of the Dead also raises your skeletal warriors and skeletal mages. And then for Bone Storm, your damage reduction is increased by 15% whilst Bone Storm is active, and then that upgrades to your critical strike chances increased by 20% while Bone Storm is active. For all the passives, we have increase the damage and life of your golem by 15%, up to 45 eventually. After you have been healthy for at least 4 seconds, you and your minions gain 4% attack speed. And then we have this one, your minions deal 10% increased damage while you are close to them. And then we also have every 5 seconds, your skeletal priest healing will heal your skeletons for 20% of their max life. And your minions cannot lose more than 75% of their max life from a single damage instance. Then we have standalone. Increases damage reduction by 6%, reduced by 2% for each active minion. Sacrificing both skeletal warriors and skeletal mages increases their sacrifice bonuses by 20%. And that's it. And then we have the key passives. Now, if you don't know about the skeletons, I should have said this in the beginning. I don't know if you're still watching at this point. Book of the Dead. This is where you, up here, this tab is where you take a look at your different skeletal warriors and their different upgrades in here to pick from on things. So the Reapers, I can change them out between these 2 things. And then eventually, or that one, and go between these things. And then I can also go click close, go to this, go to skeletal mages, and then change different things on them as I unlock them and stuff. I can change them of cold and shadow bone. And then same thing if you have the golem unlocked at level 25. So that's how you mess with all that. And again, skill assignments, how you put it back on if you remove it off your bar. So hopefully that helps you out, guys. That is all of the necromancer skills, and that's what they all do. Also, I showcased everyone that I was able to showcase, which I think was all the active ones. So hopefully that helps you out, guys. Now you know everything about the skills that you can choose, at least how they had them in beta for the necromancer.